Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone in attendance. Sam Jenks, SRM expert and CRO at Kodiak Hub here, welcoming you guys all to today's webinar, Your Path to an AI Native Procurement Team. The clock has struck 15 UK time, 16 and I'm using military hours. This is just the European style, I guess. 16:00 Central European. There's people joining from Finland. Thank you very much. I know it's 5 p.m. there, 9 a.m. Central. Where is it where you're sitting, James Meads?
It's 11 a.m. where I'm sitting. So yeah, I'm an hour ahead of you, Sam.
Fantastic, fantastic, and thank you for joining in on today's session. We are joined by James. For those of you that aren't familiar with James, James can maybe do a quick introduction to himself.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Sam, and pleasure to be here. So I love this topic, actually. So when we were planning this, I thought, yeah, this one will be a really meaty one to get into beyond the hype. So yeah, I'm James. I'm a former procurement practitioner, worked in corporate procurement in various category roles across the automotive and consumer goods industries in the UK and Germany. And then after corporate, I did a little bit of freelance consulting, and now I run my own business, predominantly helping procurement tech companies in terms of content advisory work, consulting around go-to-market activities. But I also have a couple of no-code apps that I've built that help specifically very small procurement teams solve a specific problem.
Super. And we're really excited to have you on today's session. If you guys haven't seen James's content and you're a practitioner in the market looking for technology, looking to learn more about technology, he's an absolute must follow on LinkedIn. And of course, Entproc is his business, which is providing services not only to tech providers, but also, of course, to you guys as practitioners in the market. I would love to be able to warm up the chat. I see that people are starting to pile in. It seems like every few seconds there continues to drop in new attendees. So maybe it'd be fun to just quickly warm up the chat. And by the way, at the top of the chat, you will see that there is going to be the opportunity to have a question and answer. That will be at the end of today's session, 5 to 10 minutes towards the tail end. The runtime expected with Q&A is probably going to be around 30 to 40 minutes, depending upon engagement. And we will also have some polls during today's session. So make sure to keep your voting fingers ready, because it'll be some opportunities to be able to give some insights on some polls. Are those your voting fingers, James? I've always wondered what they looked like. That's great to know as well. We like to get the chat typically warmed up a little bit before we get into this session. Please just put down where it is that you're calling in from. Always nice to see. I see that we have already somebody calling in. Jahangir, thank you very much. Calling in from Baku as well. Richard from Stockholm. I'll put in here. Hello. Olive Branch. Lausanne in Switzerland. Southern Germany. Hamburg. Atlanta. Hamburg. Sweden. Northern Sweden. Hello, Håkan. Lithuania. Welcome. Germany, South Carolina.
Quite a few.
Italy. Slovenia. I think that you might be in the warmest of places, James, in Paraguay.
Yeah, the weather is a bit bipolar at the moment. It's like 34 degrees today, but it's going to be like 17 at the weekend. So yeah, it's autumn here, but it never really gets that cold.
I think it's something that all of the Swedes and Swiss in attendance are probably pretty jealous of as well. So as somebody that's been living in Stockholm for the last 10 years, I know that this time of the year is where all Swedes are expecting warmer weather than it is. But welcome then, everyone, to the session today. Looking forward to getting into things. It seems as if we have a solid group of individuals here now, spanning across various time zones. Thank you all, wherever you're sitting, physically, for joining us here on today's virtual webinar. I want to be able to start with a quick agenda for today's session. The agenda is as follows. We're going to take a quick look at Kodiak Hub at a glance. Then we're going to get into the real meat and potatoes of today's session. I think it's always important to be able to set the stage. Where are we today? What is the current state of the union within procurement, particularly related to AI? Then we're going to talk about the concept of being AI native. And we're not just going to talk about jumping to the end goal. We're going to talk about the journey there. And I think it's incredibly important. James and I, during some of the pre-conversations that we had before today's webinar, talked about the concept that it is, in fact, a journey. And there's a lot of FOMO out there in the market right now. And we want to try and take a more optimistic spin on things, a more optimistic approach to how it is that you can start taking that particular journey. We're going to offer up a few different models as well, one of which being an AI maturity matrix and some other resources that might help you guys to understand, well, where are the gaps and where are the opportunities on being able to take this particular journey. We're going to also speak to some of the technological applications of AI in procurement and also specifically supplier relationship management, which is where, of course, Kodiak is a provider, but James is going to give us a little bit of a broader perspective on different areas across source to pay. And then we'll get into the question and answers. Again, if you guys have questions during the session, do not hesitate, do not wait, pop those directly into the chat. We'll get around them at the end of today's session as well. For those of you that are not familiar, and I know that there's a few customers in attendance as well as then some people that we are in contact with, so thank you for joining. But those of you that are not familiar with Kodiak Hub, briefly about us. Our company has been founded back in 2016. We're headquartered out of Stockholm, Sweden, with offices across Germany, UK, Poland, and now Boston, Massachusetts. We have over 100, closing at actually over 120 customers around the globe. We are a customer favorite, and that's not just us saying so. That's the market. Analysts, G2, Capterra, if you're interested in learning more about us, don't take it from us. Take it from those that are out there using our platform. I think that it's always best to be able to understand what are the practitioners that are actually applying Kodiak Hub saying about us, and you can be able to find that out in the market. For those of you that are not familiar with our solution, it's a modular SRM suite. The platform itself is broken down into 3 distinct pillars, the hub being the baseline functionality of the platform, the spider in the web, the execution and intelligence layer, where our customers are able to create a single source of truth for their data and documentation on a supplier as well as product level, helping them to be able to host different types of compliance and contractual documentation and manage, of course, the life cycle of that documentation, manage workflows, whether those be internal workflows for communication, collaboration, and qualification, escalation, and things of that sort, as well as then external communication workflows and collaboration, such as corrective actions, improvement proposals, and the like. The other modules in the solution are really focused on third-party risk management, embedding that into the lifecycle management, and on the right-hand side of the screen, modules covering pretty much the full lifecycle from intake to onboarding and self-assessment, audits, and performance evaluation. We work with some amazing teams globally. Thank you to those of you that are in attendance that are on this particular list. We're very proud to be powering world-class procurement teams across the globe. And our focus is really to help businesses that have global and complex supply chains where quality and really the speed of the relationship matters to your business. And of course, these are the types of businesses that are able to leverage Kodiak to accelerate performance in their supplier base. And that's our main focus as well. I wanted to be able to, again, talk a little bit to what I think many people are feeling today. Now that we've taken a glance at Kodiak, I wanted to be able to jump into the state of the union. And what I've been hearing from a lot of practitioners out there in the market is that there's this feeling that they are missing out on something. There's this feeling that they're not doing something right or they should be doing more. And that's a natural feeling, right? We're in a moment of change. We're at an inflection point, really, right? Where procurement can either get bitter or get better, right? In a lot of ways. I think that speed is essential. And the thing that I think that is most important to remember is that if you haven't yet started on your AI journey, no worries, right? This is incredibly important to be able to understand that the best time for you to be able to start on your AI journey, sure, it might have been yesterday, but the second best time is today. It's not too late, right? And what we want to be able to give you guys is a little bit of an applicable framework and some best practices that we see in the market for getting started. With that being said, and I just had a conversation the other day with a multiple time over CPO, now a advisor to global CPOs in the Fortune 500, and he said that there was a CPO roundtable where a CPO of a large Swedish company raised their hand and said, "Where do we get started? What are the best practices?" And I think that that's the important thing. There are none. In this age of AI, it is still forming, right? Yes, of course, there is frameworks that you can be able to apply. There is applications that are growing. But with that being said, it's a moving target. And I think that, again, starting somewhere, right, is, of course, more important than letting the paralysis by analysis take control of you. I want to start with a question to everybody, because I think that this is important when people are looking at their AI journey. What is on your C, whether that be O, F, or E's, O's whiteboard? Because I guarantee you that they are getting pressure from investors, their board of directors, other members that are shareholders in the business, to be able to make an impact within the space of AI. And that means, of course, that they're going to be looking to you guys as functional leaders to make an impact in your business. And I think that whenever we're talking about how it is that we're going to take a journey within AI and become more AI native teams, we always need to link it back to, well, what are the primary objectives of the business? What are they trying to achieve? And how is it that my AI journey works into that? But what I wanted to be able to share with you guys is also a little bit of a peeling back the onion of my strategy, right? When I look at, for example, my go-to-market strategy for this particular year, I set 5 distinct pillars. And I'm sure that many of you guys in attendance today either are working within a procurement strategy that has been set, or, for example, yourself have been responsible for setting that strategy. One of the main pillars that I set for my team was becoming AI native. And I wanted to just put some bookends on this to give an understanding of what the heck do we mean by AI native. For me, AI native means that when a problem arises, we don't just look to, for example, our old way of doing things, right? Because we need to rethink the operating model. Our MOO, our mode of operating, needs to shift to how can AI help us solve this particular problem? And we need to, of course, then upskill and arm our teams to become more AI native. In my case, sellers. In your case, procurement professionals. And this is essential that it sits at the core and it sits as a foundation within your strategy. Because if it's not in the vision and the mission of your team, then it's going to be hard for people to actually feel ownership and adopt that particular change as well. And change is necessary, right? I think that this snapshot from Hackett puts it into perspective. Let's talk this through. This was a visualization that they provided at the tail end of 2025, which progressed into 2026 as the exact same statistics. There was an expectation of workload to grow by about 10%, whereas FTEs would only grow by about 1%, and operating budget by about 1% as well. That creates a productivity and efficiency gap that we need to look towards other things, our technology, our processes, our operating models, to be able to close the gap on. We are being asked to do more with less, faster than ever before within the procurement space. And AI, while it is, of course, a great accelerant to be able to do more with less faster, this, of course, is not the only thing that our teams need to be able to focus on, right? But the bottom line is that working fast is the new currency. Being able to go from idea or concept to implementation and rollout, that is the moniker of pretty much who's going to win and potentially also lose in these next chapters in a very AI native world. James, I'm curious from your perspective, right? When we talk about this concept of speed, when we talk about this concept of the productivity and efficiency gap, what are you seeing, for example, in the businesses that you are working alongside of in the market?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna use an example that a friend of mine, Rob Nickel, gave to me when I met him for the first time last year at an event, and he held up his mobile phone and said, if at the bottom of your mobile phone where you have your 4 or 5 favorite apps, if Google or whatever your search engine of choice is still the one that you're using in there, then you're kind of already behind the curve, because if your default go-to app to ask a specific question or solve a specific problem is still a search engine, and you know, Rob, to his credit, I mean, I don't know how old he is, but he's not Gen Z or millennial. You know, he's probably around about my age. But he was saying, you know, he now goes to an LLM as a first point of call when he needs to find something out from, you know, from the internet. So I think it's that really illustrated just the change in mindset that is necessary to be AI native. And going back to your original question, because I went a little bit off piste with that answer, what am I seeing out there? I think a lot of companies are still approaching this from the mindset of, we need to slap AI onto our existing tech stack. And, you know, just by layering a glorified chatbot on top of your existing technology stack and process and architecture and workflows is not going to make you AI native. It's a little bit like, to use a synonym everyone will be familiar with, it's a little bit like trying to put a Ferrari engine into a tractor. It's not going to increase your performance. It's going to increase the possibility that you could be a high performing team, but in reality, you're going to have so many things holding you back. So yes, technology is an important piece of the puzzle, but process, architecture, people, and mindset are bigger factors, because you can have, you know, you can go out and deploy Kodiak Hub or any other insert name of best of breed, well-respected technology provider. But if you've not got the other three in place, you're going to have relatively limited amounts of success with it. So I think that's what I would always go back to. It's really around changing and throwing out the old ways of working and orthodoxy that came with it. And if you're trying to slap AI onto a procurement process that's from 2015, it just isn't going to work.
I think that this is highlighted pretty well within what the top priorities are for procurement professionals. And if this is maybe small on your screen, I can be able to highlight what this is. Obviously, every single year, as we had mentioned before, the Hackett Group, they produce a key priorities report. And for 2026, the top 5 priorities were ensuring supply continuity, improving spend cost reduction, deploying AI-enabled technology, transforming the operating model, and acting as a strategic advisor to the business. And where I want to be able to pause for a second is number 4, this perspective of transforming the operating model. Because I think in certain aspects, as James was just talking about, creating opportunities for an AI wrapper around your way of working today is not the best way to deploy AI technology. It's about taking a step back and rethinking to yourself, okay, are we doing, for example, does my team look correct? Do I have alignment in my people and my processes, right? Are those prepared to be able to have an AI native journey, right? The thing that I thought was also very interesting is that number 1 and number 2, continuity and cost remain king, right? And what were, for example, some of the savings and value realization techniques that people will absolutely be betting on with high and critical importance? It's the basics. It's supplier negotiation, it's strategic sourcing, and it's category management. It's doing supplier relationship management really, really well, supercharged by AI, acting as an advisor to the business in a new operating model to be able to what? Well, of course, create opportunities for additional continuity in your supply and also increase the spend reduction, right? I think that this is the most interesting inflection point that we're at, is that while we're looking to change our ways of working and also to be able to supercharge our ways of working with AI, doing the basics really, really well is what also one of the primary focuses for teams. And with that being said, I think that I wanted to be able to just pull up a model that we all know about, right? alignment in your people, your process, and your technology, this is, of course, where people are going to be able to win. And I guess the question that I have for everybody is, are you currently reviewing your operating model? Or as James mentioned before, are you just slabbing on elements of AI on top? And I
And
think that
I
it's an
think,
important piece. Go ahead, James.
yeah, so I just wanted to add to that, just to avoid any confusion out there. I mean, in an ideal world, we would be able to start from scratch with no legacy tech in place. But I know that the
Not
reality
happening, right?
of
Yeah.
most of the people that are out there, I mean, we're talking to an audience, I suspect, of mainly sort of manufacturing companies and companies that have some sort of supply chain. You know, if you're Anthropic, or if you're one of these new high growth tech companies, you're starting from a greenfield position, which is obviously going to be better. But we know that in the real world, you're not going to go out tomorrow and rip out your ERP system or your legacy source to pay suite. I think the challenge with this model, and I'll defer back to you in a sec, Sam, just to explain your slide, but I think that the goal will be to use your ERP system or your legacy source to pay suite as a system of record, because you've got the data in there and the architecture is able to talk to the other systems that it's integrated to. But that shouldn't be dictated. You don't want the tail wagging the dog. You know, that your legacy system shouldn't be dictating your processes and confining you to having to work within within some of the rigidness of the way that they're set up. And I think that's where you need to go back and have a real think from sort of start to finish around your end-to-end process.
Such a good point. And I mean, from our perspective, right, the alignment of these three things are essential, right? Between people and process, you have clarity and alignment in your team. Between people and technology, your team is becoming more data driven. It's where process and technology meet, of course, which is where you can augment and automate your workflows and, of course, become more agentic, which we're going to get into in just a minute. James, we stole a quote from you, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, people is obviously a big part of this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everyone that I speak to that's in a line management role of some description in procurement, and when I speak to, I have quite a lot of recruiters in my network, and I speak to them from time to time just to understand the state of the market and what people are saying. All the time I hear, oh, we can't find the right talent, we can't find the right people, and then I look at some of the job descriptions and I think, yeah, it's no wonder. If you're an A player and you're looking for a really exciting procurement role to get your teeth into, and then you go to any sort of job search engine and look at the sort of job descriptions and job ads that are out there for procurement roles, they're hiring for a 2015 skill set. The procurement professional of the future doesn't need to be able to run RFPs or have experience using SAP's module or any other thing that I typically see within the average procurement job description. Those are all inherently teachable skills. I think the challenge here is you're going to have to hire for completely new skill sets. And I've got a slide on this a little bit later on. We can.
I think we should get into it now. I think that it's relevant.
Yeah, sure. So I think what is the necessary skill set that you're going to need in an AI native procurement organization? Well, the hard skills that typically procurement would have recruited for, they're still important, right? But my point is there that I think they're inherently teachable. And, I'm going to prove my point that how many of you in the audience that are listening to this have a colleague in procurement, or maybe even it's you yourself, that's moved into your role cross-functionally from another area of the business? Probably most of you. And if you come from finance, or if you come from operations, or if you come from engineering or R&D into procurement, you're not going to know how to run an RFP, or you might know how to negotiate in terms of buying a second-hand car, or buying stuff online. You're not going to be an experienced negotiator. You're not going to know how to write a category strategy or do spend analysis. All of that is learnable, as is learning how to use your ERP system or your legacy source to pay suite. So if we're still hiring based on that based on those skills, then I just think we've got the whole process the wrong way around. soft skills, there's increasing focus on soft skills. And I know my friend Tom Mills talks a lot about this and puts a lot of content out there about soft skills. Soft skills are going to be the skills that are going to be what make you reputable and what make you credible within your role. But I think increasingly every hiring manager is going to expect some of those skills that are on the menu in that sort of middle column there. So again, that's going to be not something particularly that's going to differentiate yourself from the rest if we look forward, because I think anyone that's going to be successful in getting a procurement role in the years to come is going to need to have some or all of those. So what's going to make you stand out from the rest? And I know that the job market really sucks right now for a whole number of reasons, right? AI is being used to screen candidates, and it's not doing a particularly good job. And likewise, recruiters are struggling because AI has written people's CVs or resumes or even cover letters in some cases. So it's difficult to find out, who is actually the good candidate and who's just good at using Claude or ChatGPT. So I kind of see I kind of understand sort of both sides of this equation. What can make you really, really stand out? It's going to be having the soft skills that make you an emotionally intelligent employee. The hard skills you can learn as long as you're open-minded to be able to learn those. But if you know how to do custom automations, or maybe you've vibe coded an app in your spare time, or built an agent, or if you're really proficient using Claude skills or Cowork or custom GPTs or gems, all of those are going to be skills that, at least for now in 2026, will really make you stand out from the crowd. And if a hiring manager's thinking, how can I get more done for less with my existing headcount? Being able to do everything that's in that orange box is going to make you twice as productive as someone that's in your team that has sort of resisted using AI, or maybe knows how to ask ChatGPT a simple question, but hasn't really moved on from there. So if you want to make yourself stand above the rest in terms of what's going to give the hiring manager the biggest bang for their buck, it's not the hard skills from 2015 anymore.
No. And I think that this, of course, puts in perspective the importance, again, of taking a journey towards being AI native. And with that being said, it is a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not an inherently, native instinct for us to be able to start being able to prompt engineer or to vibe code or to build an agent. These are things and skills that we need to now retrain ourselves and our teams to do. And if you're sitting there feeling like, oh gosh, I haven't done these things yet, right? Don't worry.
And that was me.
That's
just
what
over a year ago. It's nobody.
That was everybody. That was everybody 18 months ago, right? I mean, this is we're going so fast right now, right? We're living in dog years, as I've talked about in multiple webinars, right? It's like the funny thing is that everybody equates one human year to 7 dog years, right? With that being said, at the first 2 years of a dog's life, it's actually equivalent to 24 human years. That's why they're such assholes, of course, when they're puppies, right? Because they're teenagers. But seriously, right? We are in that first 24 months. So if you wait 6 months, it's equivalent, for example, to waiting about 5 years. And I think that is the mindset that we need to get into. Again, starting the AI journey, the best time was yesterday, but the second best time is today. And what do we mean by becoming AI native? Well, we need to put this into perspective. And I think that this slide does a very good job at talking about how we can crawl, walk, and then run, right? Because a lot of people want to talk about being AI native, and it's almost becoming AI washing in a lot of ways out there in the market right now, whether that be in our teams or tech providers as well, speaking to these particular elements. I think that we wanted to ring fence and determine, what do we mean by being AI enabled, AI powered, and AI native? And this is a journey that we're looking to take a lot of our customers on, as I think that a lot of teams are working to be AI enabled, leveraging Gen AI using Claude, utilizing ChatGPT, utilizing integrated LLMs in solutions like Kodiak for search or prompting of different ways. Being AI powered, right? Getting fed actionable insights rather than having to go and search for them or prompt for them, right? Whereas being AI native is really focused on the more agentic approach. And I think that we're going to talk a little bit more about what we mean by being agentic and what we mean by building agents as well, and what agents can be able to do for an organization. But this is, of course, by being able to be, I would say, more autonomous within your use of AI, and or AI being more autonomous within its activities that it's doing for you. Okay. And I want to be very distinct. AI is there not to do your job. You are the person that is doing the job. AI is there to help do tasks, right? And I think that there's a big distinction there as well. Now, I think that many people are probably thinking to themselves, okay, where am I on this particular scale? And I would actually like to hear from everyone just so that we can be able to gauge who we have in attendance and also what it is that, for example, is the current state of your AI native journey. So if you don't mind just answering the poll that we have on screen here right now, where are you in your current journey? Are you not yet started? Are you AI enabled, meaning again, you're utilizing capabilities for prompting and things of the sort? Are you AI powered in the sense that you have, for example, insights being fed to you? And are you AI native? Have you deployed agents in your ways of working across source to pay to be able to actually impact your modes of operating, your processes, speed, and augment things, allowing the agents to be able to work autonomously with you as the human in the loop? So just take a second. Seems like about half the people in attendance have voted. Please take a second to be able to vote. Have you not started your journey? Are you AI enabled? Are you AI powered? Are you feeling AI native? Interesting. Okay. And I think that this of course puts into perspective who he is that we have in attendance. I'm not shocked either, right? About 80% of people here have not yet started their AI journey or are feeling AI enabled, whereas the vast minority is feeling 20% is AI powered and AI native. And I think that this is to be expected as well. James, any comments on this from your side?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Sam. I would have expected pretty much the same. I mean, I guess by AI enabled, yeah, that exactly. That means, they've probably got a Copilot license and they're doing it. They're using it to do simple tasks like analyzing a supplier offer or assess it or assessing what nasty clauses might be in a contract, that type of thing. So
Right.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I think most people are beyond not having touched it yet, but haven't really gone beyond using the chat function in the LLM. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, which I think is a good starting point for for the rest of today's content as well, talking about the maturity matrix and the like. We have a very popular model at Kodiak Hub called our SRM pyramid. If you haven't seen it before, then you can be able to reach out and get in touch. It talks about kind of the journey towards being able to drive, I would say, real impact and supplier performance, right? In the same way, I think that you could break down AI into a journey of sorts as well. And I think that the pyramid provides a perfect visualization for this, right? Because it's about setting the foundation, utilizing AI to execute, and then, of course, utilizing AI as a competitive advantage. What I want to be able to call out here is that we've broken down step by step some of the areas or layers of maturity that are required to be able to move on to a state in which you can be able to have a truly AI native organization, a truly AI native tech stack, and truly be able to leverage AI as a competitive advantage within your business. The thing that I want to be able to call out here, though, is that it all starts with data, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And this isn't, from our perspective as anyone that's a solution provider that is providing a system of record as Kodiak is Hub is saying, just because, of course, it's an element of what we do. This is a fact. If you guys do not have a core foundation of data and documentation centralized in a solution that also can be able to have AI overlays, then you're going to be in trouble, right? And I wanted to be able to first and foremost give an understanding of what we mean by data types in your business. And I think that finding the opportunities to be able to make sense of all of these data sources is incredibly important. This matrix, I think, is a very simple way to be able to break down some of the core elements of vendor data and also procurement data, right? Our founder says it all the time. Procurement professionals have an abundance of information, data, and documentation, but they're lacking insights. Why is typically because these data pockets are often in disparate systems, right? Creating a system of record, as James mentioned before, is essential. Being able to make use of structured and also unstructured data is essential. And I think that the beautiful thing and what we've also highlighted here is that AI has the ability to be able to make sense of both in-company and external unstructured data in a way that we as humans have never had access to before, right? And this is one of the true values of course, becoming an AI native organization. But it also requires that you create an opportunity for a system of record so that data, documents, and alike are, in fact, in a system of record so that they can be parsed by an OCR, by NLP capabilities, and things of that sort. So if you're thinking to yourself, okay, I don't really have a system of record, or I'm trying to move towards beyond being, AI enabled and move up in my kind of value journey as an individual becoming AI native, we've put together a little bit of a matrix. Where are you today? Question mark. Versus where can you go? And I think that this particular maturity matrix highlights what your current state might look like, what the pain points are related to those, and what can unlock the next level. For example, many people here today said that they are AI enabled, meaning that, for example, you have basic AI search summary capabilities that you're utilizing often. That's still a reactive perspective, right? And listen, I utilize, for example, search and summaries and queries and prompts all the time, right? There's good ways to do it. There's bad ways to do it. You can stand up GPTs, right, to be able to become a little bit more assisted. But what unlocks that next level? It's very clearly outlined at each of these individual steps. And I think that this, of course, puts into context that, again, it is a journey, but it all starts with the foundation of a clear understanding of your data and your documentation. Why is because, of course, without that, you're going to have a very tough time progressing to the next step of the maturity matrix. If we then jump back very briefly to the AI pyramid and ultimately getting to a place of competitive advantage. And I think that the concept that we're getting after here again of supercharging your business with AI, becoming AI native, it goes back to a very simple fact. You need to do more with less faster because there's an efficiency and a productivity gap to close. And I think that James put together a model for us here that helps to really highlight the concept of what AI can be able to do to support you in this journey.
Yeah, and I think going back to your previous slide, Sam, just for a second, maybe if you can just move back there 1 second. I know we haven't got a poll on this one, but if I was a betting man and you gave me €50 or dollars to put a wager on where I think most people that are watching this are at, I'd probably say most are somewhere around 2 and 3. And I think that's typical of most procurement teams today. There will be some outliers that are maybe 4s or 5s. I don't think we'll see any 6s just yet, unless we go to someone like Anthropic or OpenAI and look at their procurement team. Likewise, I think we've moved past the 1s. Maybe in sort of small businesses and the lower end of the mid market, you might see some 1s, but I don't think in enterprise you'll see many 1s anymore, or even probably moving from 2 to 3. Where I'd see most teams. But yeah, anyway, I digress. I wanted to talk about the topic of effective hourly rate. And this kind of comes back to nobody out there who's a procurement leader says, I have a well-staffed team and we can complete everything that we're asked to do with plenty of time. No procurement team is over-resourced, right? It's just the reality of where we sit. Sales typically have a lot more sales reps based on the amount of revenue that they're expected to go out and hunt and gather, versus what procurement is typically expected to deliver in terms of reportable hard savings. It's the reality of how businesses operate. We're not going to say whether it's fair or not. That's just what it is. So if we take that as given, and we need to do more with less, because as Sam alluded to in one of the earlier slides, typically you're not getting more headcount to compensate for the additional workload that you're getting. How are you going to achieve that without breaking down, or without dropping one of the plates and ending up in hot water because you're non-compliant when you get to an audit or whatever it might be, or a supplier doesn't deliver on time and they stop the production line? So I broke this down and said, okay, typically as a category manager, and I've actually done that role, I'm not a consultant speaking from an ivory tower pontificating about what a category manager does. I've actually done this, right? Most category managers out there, this is the breakdown of their day. You're spending probably around a third of your time doing work that's pretty clerical in nature. Then you're spending about another 50% doing work that is either tactical or firefighting, but it's not particularly strategic. Firefighting and crisis management is reactive, and in a well-organized team, it should be, for the most part, avoidable. But we realize we don't live in a perfect world. And then you've got the tactical work. So tactical is typically what I would call writing RFPs. It's not particularly strategic, writing an RFP or redlining a contract. It's fairly run-of-the-mill tactical work. And then the top one, the strategic work, and this, for anyone that's seen Kodiak Hub's SRM pyramid, this is the stuff that sits at the top. This is things like, the real meaty part of SRM, supplier innovation, actively implementing your category strategy rather than designing it in PowerPoint and talking about it, visiting suppliers, scouting for new ones, going to conferences and learning from benchmarks and best practices. This is what I would call the strategic work, but that's typically only 20% of a category manager's day or week. So then if I take a step back and say, typically, if we're looking at Western Europe or North America, $100,000 is an average salary for an experienced category manager. So if I take that $100,000 and say, okay, if we assume now that they're European and they have 5 weeks of paid leave, and then maybe
no. That's a strange assumption with some of the Americans here. Don't start telling them about that. They're going to get jealous.
Yeah, I know. So if we say 25 days paid leave and then 10 public holidays, that gives us 225 working, theoretically productive days that they're going to be doing their job. If I divide that by 8 hours a day, roughly speaking, 40-hour week, I know some countries typically work less. That gets me to an effective hourly rate of $55.55 an hour that you as an employer are paying for a category manager. That doesn't include all of the employer social security contributions that come on top of that. So in reality, it's more, but let's keep it clean. Would you pay a clerical admin assistant that amount of money if you went to a temp agency, or if you went on one of these freelancing platforms like Upwork or Fiverr? Would you pay someone $55 an hour to do pretty run-of-the-mill admin work? Of course you wouldn't. So for anyone out there that's saying, I don't have resource, sorry, but you do have resource. You just need to strip away that 30% of the work that your team are doing every day that could be outsourced theoretically to an admin assistant. Because historically, a lot of day-to-day administrative, transactional, operational work was farmed out to shared service centers in Eastern Europe or in India or in Latin America for North American and Western European companies. That low-cost labor arbitrage model is kind of dead in the future, because AI is going to be able to do a lot of that predictable, repetitive work. So if we're talking about AI native, and we're talking about freeing up your team to be able to develop and then apply the skills through being AI native, do the easy lifting first. Don't go to your CFO and ask him for $100,000 in tech budget. before you've eliminated some of the day-to-day admin work that your team are currently doing. You've got
And I
to be
think
at
that
that level of maturity first.
I agree. And I think that this puts into perspective, the whole journey is focused on moving from a perspective of being, reactive to being proactive. Low value tasks multiplied by AI equals doing more of those low value tasks with the same amount or less FTEs, period. It gives your team time back more for execution and strategy, focusing less again on the operational and tactical tasks that are otherwise taking a lot of time. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, where is it that we should start? Of course, if you're not, again, going back to the maturity model, if you haven't yet started, move to being AI enabled. If you're at AI enabled, determine what is the white space to close the gap between me now and being AI powered. And then again, if you're AI powered, then try to move to being AI native. So, what are some of the applications? I invited in James to be able to talk a little bit about a cross source to pay, where he sees the largest activities of practitioners being augmented by AI technology and AI native technology today. And I'm going to speak to some of the things that we're doing at Kodiak Hub within the SRM space as well. So go ahead, James.
Yeah, and obviously, you're going to go through the detail of the SRM side, Sam. So I just wanted to highlight some of the other areas across wider source to pay, source to contract processes in general, where AI is already delivering and is already implemented. It's not just theory; this is actually happening. So supplier scouting has been around for a while. Back in 2015, Scout B launched their first product around supplier scouting. So this is not a new concept. I think what is new with supplier scouting is you can essentially do that in an LLM nowadays with the right prompt.
Yeah.
Drafting and writing RFP documents, to write an RFP from scratch would have taken me, 8 years ago when I was in a category manager role, would have taken me a day. Nowadays, you can do it in less than an hour if you've got a prompt that you can reuse and then just modify the document that comes out of your favorite LLM. Or you can use an e-sourcing platform, and that already has templates, and you'll get there even faster. A lot of the AI native e-sourcing solutions now can do pretty advanced bid analysis and scenario planning based on, if I award the top 3 suppliers from this auction all of the business, then what is the saving? Or if I give my incumbent supplier a 5% price advantage because the cost of switching is going to be real for the business in terms of loss of factory productivity, for example, you can do a lot of that within these e-sourcing apps now without historically what you had to do, export it to Excel and then write formulas to do that. They're also getting very, very good at bringing in non-price based analysis as well and incorporating that into a scorecard and making recommendations.
If we can just, in the interest of time, sorry to interrupt you here, James. I'm just looking at the clock. In the interest of time, do you think that there's maybe 1 or 2 of these areas that you could be able to highlight that, again, businesses that are more in an AI-enabled mode of operating could maybe really make application, leaving today and have something practical tomorrow?
Yeah, I think tail spend and contract management then are probably the biggest ones in terms of in terms of time that it will free up. Yeah, being able to have a bot that can negotiate spend that typically wouldn't be under management, that will enable then a lot of additional cost avoidance or savings, and just the time suck that contracts give you. If you can be a gatekeeper to legal and manage a lot of that yourself, and then legal trusts you to manage it based on the tech that you've got in place, to not have to bother them with every single contract request, I think that will increase cycle time and deliver a lot of value.
Yeah. Awesome input.
Sorry, not
and
reduce cycle time. Sorry, not increase cycle time.
But awesome insights as well. And I think that, again, there is applications that can be done today, like you said, with the tools at hand, with utilizing Anthropic or OpenAI, particularly on the sourcing side of things as well.
Yeah.
At Kodiak, we're applying AI in various ways. One of the primary applications being our intelligence and execution layer, which is Beyond. We have document extraction. We have automated category management that is being and segmentation that is being launched soon. audit extraction that is being launched soon to be able to directly move from an audit summary to creating a corrective action plan, industry and risks and price fluctuations in the marketplace. There's various things that we are launching currently that are going to be live for our customers and or already are live for our customers that can be able to impact the way that we manage supplier relationships. But to be able to put it into perspective here, I think that the world that we're moving towards is an agentic system, right? And what do we mean by being AI native? I think that what you will see is teams shifting towards a agent org chart. And what do I mean by that? Is not that these agents will be doing your job. AI is not going to take your job, but it will take your tasks. And I think that one of the really interesting and important exercises for a lot of businesses to be able to do, which we've done with our solution and use cases that are we see menial and or, for example, operational and tactical in our solution, is to be able to determine how can we build an agent to be able to augment the way that this organization is working with this otherwise rather manual task. And this is a great opportunity for you guys as business leaders and or practitioners to go back to your business and say, okay, if we look at, for example, the operational and tactical activities that are happening on a day-to-day basis that are time consuming, let's map those out. And then let's start saying, where can we be able to apply an agent for that? How is it that I can be able to start building out a map of tasks to be done that can be able to augment my work, right? And I think that these org charts help us to be able to, again, kind of build the wardrobe and then start being able to fill it with agents as well. With that being said, in the matter of time, I think that we need to be able to shuffle over to the Q&A. But I thank you guys for taking the opportunity to be able to be in attendance today. And I wanted to also then offer up the opportunity that if you're interested in speaking with the Kodiak Hub team, you can utilize the call to action that is on the screen right now to be able to go out and book a demonstration with the Kodiak Hub team. And also, we could be able to speak there how it is that our solution, of course, is applying AI, but also maybe support you on your AI native journey as well. There's quite a few questions in the chat, so that's awesome to be able to see. Great to be able to get some engagement. Thank you very much for the various questions that we have here. Again, if you would like to be able to speak with somebody of our team, feel free to book a demo. James, for your sake, if people want to be able to get in touch with you or learn more about your services, what's the easiest way to do so before we get into the questions and answers?
Yeah, the easiest way is just to DM me on LinkedIn. James Meads, Meads is my name. You'll find me easily on there, and that's the best way. I'm very active on there.
Super. And if you're interested in getting the slide deck from today, any of the models that we shared or alike, please just feel free to shoot me an email and or, for example, contact us via our website, and we can be able to get those sent your way as well. So there is a first question here. Supplier scouting. Easier as you may think to make it AI native. Sounds more like a statement rather than a question. With that being said, I agree. James, any comments from your side here on this particular item?
Yeah, no, I agree as well, and it's a lot easier to do that these days without going out and buying specialist procurement tech than it would have been 2 years ago. Yeah.
Agreed. And I think that, again, the solutions that are at our fingertips probably can help with this quite a bit. This question got cut off because it was quite long, but thank you for the long question from Calais. Do you think that with agentic capabilities, procurement orgs will reevaluate what tasks and processes are really even needed versus just automating existing processes? Great question. Guess where I'm getting at is that it seems like there's an opportunity to reassess and redefine how procurement orgs can add value, i.e. become more outcome-oriented, decision support consultative, etc., versus paper pushing. I love this approach. And I think that this is what we talk about when we're looking at, for example, proactive procurement, right? Not being a policing or a policing function or a process focused function, but embedding ourselves into the workflows of buying, right? It's inherent. Everybody loves to buy. Procurement then becomes that barrier at the end of a buying process. I think that absolutely we need to rethink our processes in an AI world, because going back to what James was talking about before, is it really realistic that today a category manager is taking 30% of their time to work on that tactical piece, particularly when you could be able to throw an RFP together in 30 minutes with a very good prompt, right? I think that that is an essential question that we need to ask ourselves. And this is also what we mean about the operating model, not just our tech stack, not just our people, but also the processes in place. James, anything to add from your perspective there?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And this is when I talk about the phrase entrepreneurial procurement, this is exactly what I
Mm.
mean. We've we've taken, I think, risk management and turned it into complete risk avoidance. And that's created a lot of managerialism and unnecessary process that we could get rid of. So I think I would approach this from eliminate, delegate, and automate, and just put all of your
Mm.
processes into those three different buckets. And which ones don't you need to have? And I'll use a classic example here: travel requests. It's just complete nonsense. Give your team members a budget to manage and let them trade €1,000 among themselves if one wants to travel and the other one doesn't. Give them their knowledge workers. Give them some autonomy and treat them like adults. So I think there's a lot that you can do there in terms of putting that into three different buckets: eliminate, delegate, automate.
Awesome. There's a comment here that product management is also a critical skill, and in AI native teams, defining what to build in which order and what will be the cost of maintenance. And I could not agree more. I think that businesses are moving over to a perspective of builders, right? Because everyone can build today, right? And being able to identify again where the gaps are and go out and build it, that's going to be a skill that is required for the next stage of things in this AI native environment that we're living in. There was a question from Oscar. How do you tell the difference between adding AI features to existing procurement workflows and becoming truly AI native at the team level? Your guess is as good as mine here, Oscar. With that being said, James, I'm sure that you have some perspectives on this.
I mean, yeah, it's a great question, and it's kind of tricky to answer in a sort of 30-second soundbite. But I do think there are questions that you can ask of the providers to understand: is their tech really AI native? How long have they been around for? What is it that the AI is actually doing? If it's just a souped up version of optical character recognition for invoice processing, it's not really AI native. So it's all
Mm,
about the specific questions that you ask of the provider around what's under the hood and what is AI actually doing. There's a big
mm.
difference between a product that's been built or even being sort of refurbished from the ground up versus one that's just had a couple of features slapped onto the top of it.
And I think that there's an element to important distinction here as well. Again, crawl and walk before you run. I think that we heard just 80% of the people in this session here are before their AI journey or being AI enabled. You should not, for example, you should be going to vendors and expecting for them to be, focused on building agents, but meet yourself and your team where you are as well within this particular journey. I think that that is also an aspect that can't be lost within the conversation is that expectations versus ability need to be able to meet somewhere in the middle, right? And I think that that's both on the vendor side as well as then also on the practitioner side is a crucial element to be able to close the gap between. One last question from Usama. First, we need to have a good to go mindset with the alignment of everyone. Then make skills sets, what to acquire for which job. Then go for the product. Is this the roadmap? Is this roadmap good? I assume that you mean the product being Kodiak Hub. I see in another comment. Listen, I mean, from our perspective, the technology can be able to guide the mindset. The mindset can be able to adopt the technology faster. It's a chicken or the egg perspective. James, from your side, anything to be able to add here? About like what comes first in these orders of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think Osama generally has got the right idea that you need to fix the basics before you look
Yeah.
at a digital transformation that involves that involves implementing technology. If you're just talking about automating a specific bottleneck, if you want to automate purchase request intake, for example, that's a relatively standalone process that you could do without having a very mature procurement team and good data. But if you're looking at implementing a pretty comprehensive piece of software like Kodiak or a end-to-end source-to-pay system for that matter, you need to have the basics in place.
Yeah. Thank you so much, James Meads, for your insights. It was a pleasure being able to have you on today's session. I speak for myself, and I'm sure for many others, it's always valuable to be able to hear from people, A, that have worn the shoes, but B, also that are currently working alongside practitioners to really ensure that these things, these things land, right? That they don't just remain theory. And I think that that's our approach as well, is that we want to make sure that we support organizations out there to become AI native, reduce the FOMO, and put an opportunistic lens on things as well.
Always a pleasure to be there, Sam. Thank you for inviting me, and yeah, it was really enjoyed this one. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for attending. Much appreciated for taking the time and effort. We really appreciate the opportunity to be able to present to so many people, and we don't take it lightly as well. If you're interested in the content, again, feel free to get in touch. If you're interested in learning more about Kodiak, then please feel free to do so. James, of course, has opened up his lines on LinkedIn to be able to get in touch as well. Thank you very much.